Hey, and welcome back to my podcast. This is John Bishop with John Bishop Fine Art, and you're listening to Conversations with Freelance Creatives. Hope you're having a good week. I am. I'm going to talk a little bit today about something that has occurred to me recently, and it's the need to be self-reflective. I know we've talked at length in various episodes about building our businesses based on sound planning, that we have good goals and objectives that are thought out and that they tie closely with the vision and mission to our business that we understand and have incorporated and internalized. We have really, really good systems in place to realize our business goals. And we know what kinds of people we need to be based upon what it takes to be a good entrepreneur and somebody who's willing to take risks and to do risk management and risk assessment as well. And we know that we have to be self-motivated and we have to be self-starters in order to make our businesses work. But what we really haven't talked about is that elephant in the room. What do you do when you don't seem to want to succeed? When there's something that tells you to procrastinate, something that tells you try not to do something new, you could fail. Try not to stand out because you could be embarrassed. There's a little whisper of fear in so much of what I do as a creative. I think not only as a creative, but as a business person as well. And that's a tremendous roadblock to where I'm going to take my business. So I have to address this little whisper of a voice that gets in the way. Why would I do that? Why in the world? We've talked about how I'm absolutely passionate about this new business that we're running and that I'm having the time of my life. And I kind of know from experience and from research the things I should be doing to help build my business. Why would I ever want to get in the way of that kind of growth and success? Well, there's another voice in me other than the one that is my conscious, rational mind. It's my subconscious. And my subconscious mind has a whole different language. And there's a lot of study if you want to look at neuro-linguistic programming and just psychology in general. There is this part of us that in order to protect myself, I'm going to put up roadblocks to things that could be dangerous. I mean, I think that's probably evolutionarily beneficial for me to do that, to be a little more risk averse. What is it that I've heard people talk that little voice that makes you doubt could be the difference between a rustle in the grass being just the wind blowing or a lion ready to pounce. And if you err on the side of caution, you get eaten less often. And so there might be some sort of developmental evolutionary process that makes being a little more careful advantageous to our success. But without going that far back, I do know that there is a part of me that is nonverbal, non-rational, subconscious. And that gatekeeper can actually get in the way of progress. And the only way I know how to deal with that kind of gatekeeper is to be self-reflective, to know myself as well as I possibly can so that I can deal with this little monster inside me. And that's not fair. I don't want to set up an idea that there's something wrong with my subconscious. It's doing its job. I just don't understand it rationally because it's not about reason. There's this whole this whole language, this whole symbolic vocabulary that is in my subconscious that I'm only going to be able to approximate, right? I'm not going to ever understand it. I can only take a shot at it and try and ameliorate some of the effects that it has on me. And if you don't believe that you have this secret language, try and analyze your dreams sometime. I mean, I used to do that because I thought it was very fascinating. I would train myself to wake up from a dream and pick up a pen and start to journal. Write down that dream because I tended to forget it by the time the morning came. And what I found was I would wake up from an incredibly powerful, very, very detailed and vivid dream. And as I started to write it down, by the second or third line, I realized it made no sense at all. There were giant gaps. There were things like, explaining why my mother turned into a giant snail. Well, you know what? I don't know why she turned into a giant snail. There may have been a symbolic thing I was working through in my brain. I don't understand it. My brain did, because it was working through something. So if you don't believe that your brain is doing this, I challenge you, make sense of some of your dreams. Now, there are lots of people who say they can interpret dreams in different ways, and your symbolic language is probably unique to you. One thing that process showed me was whenever I dream of giant cats like tigers and lions and cheetahs and things, that is usually a religious dream. There's a religious symbolism there. I don't know why. It's just something that every time I've analyzed it, it seems to make sense. And that's probably one of those symbols in my head that probably or may not exist for other people. So the ability to address my subconscious in as closely as I possibly can, realizing that I'm never going to get it completely right, is the only way I know to address these inconsistencies, this possibly negative effect that the subconscious brain is having. So if I believe myself to be very, very good at being self-reflective, of being very, very good about being able to be honest with myself. Well, studies show that the people who think they're really good at this generally are not. This is a difficult thing to do. But what the studies are showing is that there is a direct relationship between those people who put the control of their life within their own control as compared to those who put the center of control outside themselves. The people who put the center of control within their control do much, much better at this sort of thing. So let's consider that for a moment. What does that mean? Well, first of all, do you know people who blame others for everything that goes wrong? And it's as if they don't even know they're doing it. But because you can observe someone outside yourself much better than you can observe yourself, you can see that in other people. And you think, why do they do it every time? You can hear it coming. It will never be their fault. It will be the fault of the government. It'll be the fault of the lunch lady. It'll be the fault of someone in traffic. It'll be the fault of the boss or the employee or the cricket that kept you up last night. The people who put that blame outside themselves are protecting themselves from that kind of self-reflection. Think for a moment. If you put all of the locus of control within your control, then any problem that you come up with, you can solve, or at least you think you can solve. If the control is external, you are always the victim of life, of whatever happens to you. But if I believe I am in control of my life, then I believe that there's a path forward for me to solve the problems that I have. I'm not saying again that I am so self-aware that I will be able to do it, but I will believe that I can do it. And the more I believe that I can do it, and the more I tell myself that I have control over my life, the more I try and convince my brain that I truly can. Because you can sway your unconscious by repetitively saying positive statements, affirmative statements. And we've heard people who self-deprecate all the time, who are always knocking themselves. They're convincing their brains of that as well. So it's really, really vital that we constantly remind ourselves that we're in control of our fate, even if we're not. I mean, I'm trying to be realistic here. If you believe that you are the person who can control, then you can find solutions. Now, we talked about the elements, the characteristics that an entrepreneur must have. And gee whiz, this has to be one of them. You need to be able to say that you can control the outcome of your life and of your business and of your whatever else, the fears that you have. And these fears are substantial. They could get very much in the way. But if you believe you can fix it, you have a giant step forward. You need to be as honest and completely internally, you need to be able to be self-reflective to the degree that the largest degree that you can. And your body is designed to be otherwise, right? You need to become as clear about those non-linguistic, symbolic language that your brain speaks as you can. You will never master it. It's just not in our makeup. We're built this way. It's the way we're wired. So we have to be able to find strategies to overcome that. And so that's what I really wanted to talk to you about today. The problem is that there are sometimes external forces that are impacting us, right? Sometimes the noisy neighbor really is a distraction. And sometimes the jerk at work is really trying to make us look bad in front of the boss. So when we know that there can be external forces, and we know that our brain is trying to tell us that there are external forces even when they're not, how do you know the difference? The only way you can know the difference is to be self-reflective to the greatest degree that you possibly can. So there are strategies for doing that. Like I say, there's meditation, there's prayer, if you're in a religious tradition. Otherwise, yeah, meditation we talked about. Meditation that it's not religious, I mean. Knowing and starting to recognize how you talk about yourself can be a huge, huge sign. You can also just observe the kinds of things that you procrastinate. I mean, I know that at the beginning of this year, realized that one of my goals had to be that I need to put myself out there more. And so I do the blog and a vlog and this podcast, and we're about to go live streaming on Zoom to try and reach out and expand my world online, because the businesses, particularly the art businesses that have done that during the pandemic, have actually done better than those who haven't. So I know this. But this is a tremendous fear of mine. This makes me quite uncomfortable. So I tend to delay. I tend to put things off. And when I see that I'm putting things off, when I have a checklist, a to-do list of things that I need to get done, and I start to notice that there's certain things I'm avoiding, and I would do everything I can to put that thing last, that's where I need to put my attention. How do you do that? How do you, once you've kind of recognized that thing, how do you address it? Well, remember, and I hear people talking all the time that treating the brain like a small child or a pet, you have to be repetitive. You have to continuously reinforce the new behavior before it becomes a habit. I mentioned, I think last time, I'm overweight, I need to lose the weight, I have diabetes. I will do anything I can not to get out and take a walk. I used to love to walk, but now I don't. It hurts, I'm bored, I got other things to do. It's raining, it's cold, whatever. I place some sort of roadblock out there because I really don't want to do the exercise. My body's not used to it and I don't want to do it. I have to find that way. I have to find that pain point that is going to make me do that. And then I have to reinforce it again and again. You know, it's so funny because I know people who are quite athletic and they have a completely different experience in life. One that I don't think I will ever understand. You know, I've heard people talk about getting this euphoria, this kind of, you're running or you're exercising, you're doing whatever it is you do, to that level when there's some sort of thing that kicks in. There's almost a spiritual kind of association with this level of athleticism. I've never experienced that. I might never experience that because it's just not in my makeup. So those people are much more, motivated because they know that exercise makes them feel good and can actually make them reach that kind of nirvana plateau experience that athleticism can provide. I can't start there because I have to keep reinforcing in my brain, I have to do this, I have to do this, I want to do this, this is good for me. And I have to just make it a habit before it becomes something that I can progress further on. And the same is going to be true for all of the things that I'm neglecting in my business. You know, I will put receipts off till the very end. Receipts aren't hard though, right? Receipts are just boring and I don't want to do them. What's hard is to go and make a cold call, to call up a gallery and say, hi, I'm an artist. I think my work might fit with your gallery. I'd like to send some things. Oh my gosh, that is so hard for me. Not that I really am afraid of being rejected. I just don't want to do it. It's not comfortable. And I don't want to get rejected. I'm just also not convinced how successful it could be. So I build up all these rationalizations to keep myself from doing it. So if I know that about myself, then I can come up with strategies to either desensitize myself to that or to actually just make myself do it in a repetitive enough way that it will become a habit over time. And I've done that with lots of other things. You know, it's funny because I was, in some ways, I'm quite disorganized. And if you don't believe that, look at my desk. And I think because I was disorganized, I trained myself to be uber organized and became a librarian and spent my 30 years in incredible detail, being as organized as you can possibly get. And we're going to talk about that next week. So I do think there are pathways forward, and we owe it to ourselves and to our businesses to identify those kinds of things when they occur, and then to start working on them in a systematized way. I use a lot of checklists. That's the way it works for me. I actually have created this, every time we start a new project, I will create a project sheet. I think we've spoken about this before, that when I get busy, things start to slip through the cracks, and I will do stupid things and forget to do important things. And so I create these little checklists, and then I can say, okay, I can kind of relax. As long as I can get through the checklist, I know I haven't left off anything that's terribly important. And so these elements have become so important. I think I told the story that we had actually come up with goals and objectives, and at the end of the year we revisited them, and we had done we hadn't done a single one. But we'd done other things, but we hadn't done a single one of the goals that we had said we wanted to do. And so now we actually have, on that project sheet, we have to say which goal and objective we are addressing with this particular project. That makes us a little more mindful of our goals and objectives as we work through the year. It also means that we're not going to take on a project that is really out in left field and has nothing to do with really what we wanted to achieve. So it keeps us honest in a couple of ways. But what I've added to that checklist is 2 questions that I ask with every project. 1, what am I afraid of? What part of this project scares me? What is it that immediately when I say we're going to do this project, that little voice that says, but that means I'm going to have to do this. What is that fear? And if I can jot that down, the second question is, what do I really want? Because very often I won't be able to verbalize clearly what it is that I actually want to achieve. So I put those questions on my check sheet. Now, I'm not looking here to be really, really eloquent in the way I answer those questions, but I want to be responsible enough to know that I've considered them and that I named them early on, that I'm saying, you know what, this is going to be a fear of mine. Maybe I need to work out some strategies as this project goes forward to deal with that little bit of fear. And when you start to look, you'll notice that that little bit of fear shows up in a lot of projects and becomes kind of something you learn to recognize in yourself. And if you can do that, then what else could anyone ask of you in being self-reflective? I mean, that's about as good as you're going to get. And that's a good thing. It doesn't mean we're always going to get it right, but it does mean we have to try, because it can make such a significant difference in the way your business progresses. Like I say, I've seen people completely sabotage their own relationships, their own businesses, their own education. They can't see it. And they wouldn't believe me if I told them. So have you ever noticed too, I mean, if you go to get advice, if you go to your friends and ask for advice, they will often give you spectacularly bad advice. And so you think, okay, well, I'll ask an expert, I'll ask a teacher or some sort of mentor for advice. And very often they give you pretty awful advice, or advice that shows that they don't really know you or the issue very well at all. And you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. You don't want to be negative. You don't want to seem as though you're not open to criticism or to learning. But at the same time, you're saying, but that's just not true. None of it rings true. And if it's not ringing true, you got to walk away from it. So I say, okay, well, I work alone most of my life, and I don't have a lot of friends and kind of mentor, teacher, people who can give me advice. So I go online. Holy cow! You want to talk about a good place to get bad advice. I mean, if I have a sore toe and I look it up online, I end up with some rare cancer. Everything is exaggerated. Either the stuff that I'm getting has nothing to do with the problems that I'm trying to research, or they're really, really bad advice. And you will find people who will tell you completely contradictory things, and they both swear that the other's wrong. Maybe there's a little truth on both sides. So I guess my point is that you have to depend upon looking inward, addressing that voice that is that kind of gatekeeper to your subconscious, because that is what's going to determine whether or not you can get past the gatekeeper and move on to stop the negative influence that you could be having on your own success. Wanted to share that with you. That's really what I wanted to say today. By the way, I wanted to mention that as part of this new quest to continuously grow and develop and get myself out there, you may have noticed that Bogdan is not on these programs. Bogdan is a photographer and a videographer and an editor, and he wants to be behind the camera. And because of various reasons, he doesn't want to be in front of the camera. So I've devised a way to get Bogdan in front of a camera. I'm so psyched. We're going to start Zoom meetings once a week, every Thursday at 11 a.m. Central time. And from 11 to 11:30, it's a half-hour show, and we're going to talk about our art. We're going to show some of our art. We're going to talk about our inspirations and what we're doing with our art. Just a chat session. We're going to call it Art Chat with John and Bogdan. And so we're starting that this week. So as of March the 4th, 2021, we will be doing this every Thursday. Tune in. We'd love to meet you in person. And this is just one more chance to kind of push forward into an area that is less comfortable for us and hopefully meet more people. I mean, the whole purpose of this podcast, of my vlog and my blog and pretty much everything we do, we want to create an environment where we can talk to others about what it's like to run an art business. We want to talk about what we're learning, who we're meeting, and develop some sort of community in conversation. So hopefully you'll join us. This is a way that we can see you back, because on Zoom you'll be in a little square. So anyway, hope you'll join us every Thursday morning, 11 a.m. Central Time. And shoot me an email if you want an invitation reminder. Otherwise, just look us up on Zoom. If you'll look on our social media and stuff, you'll see how to do that. If not, just send me an email. My contact information is on the bottom of this production, or you could just go to my website, johnbishopfineart.com, and there's information there as to how to log in. So great. Have a wonderful week. Next week we're going to be talking about being honest with ourselves and in the way that we face this beast of our subconscious, and just being honest with ourselves and how realistic in how we're running our businesses. So look forward to talking to you then. Have a wonderful week. Stay creative, and I will see you then. Bye now.